Sequels have become an enduring part of the film industry, with the allure of expanding upon and continuing a story often proving irresistible to both filmmakers and audiences. While many argue that the original is always superior to its sequel, there have been numerous outstanding sequels over the years that are on par with or even surpass the original. This can often be attributed to the same creative team working on both the original and the sequel, allowing them to further refine their craft and produce better results. In this list, we'll explore 5 sequels that defied expectations, turning the tables on their less than stellar originals and proving that sometimes the second time's the charm. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. With that being said, the 5th best sequel to a bad movie in our list is Thor Ragnarok. While most MCU films from the 2010s have been widely praised by both critics and audiences, the Thor movies have often stood out as the outliers. While the first Thor film was considered a decent fantasy outing, Thor: The Dark World was a significant disappointment for the MCU, particularly when compared to the other Phase 2 films. Its lackluster storyline, uninspiring character dynamics, and dull monochromatic visual style have relegated it to the status of one of the most forgettable movies in the franchise and arguably the weakest MCU film to date. To rejuvenate the Thor series and align it with the vibrant and humor-filled tone of the rest of the MCU, director Taika Waititi was brought on board. The impact of his work on Thor Ragnarok cannot be overstated. The film's blend of vivid, high-concept visuals, witty improvised dialogue, and deeper thematic elements quickly set a new standard for blockbuster filmmaking. While many have attempted, and largely failed, to capture the same magic that Waititi brought to Ragnarok, including Waititi himself with Thor: Love and Thunder, the film still stands as one of the strongest entries in the MCU. And the 4th best sequel is Fast 5. The Fast and the Furious franchise has had its fair share of highs and lows over its decade-long run, with the 4th installment, Fast and Furious, standing out as a particularly low point. Despite bringing back Vin Diesel and Paul Walker together for the first time since the original film, Fast and Furious is heavily weighed down by the filmmaking trends and conventions of the late 2000s. It boasts what is arguably the weakest storyline in the series and casts a rather bleak shadow over the franchise's future. Nevertheless, the potential for a triumphant return to form was clearly visible, and it was fully realized with the following installment. The Fast saga owes much of its massive success to the impact and lasting legacy of Fast 5. This installment was a relentless, adrenaline-pumping action extravaganza that trimmed the excess and delivered one thrilling moment after another, with many still considering it the pinnacle of the series. Fast 5 was a game-changer, featuring a standout performance from Dwayne Johnson as the formidable Hobbs, which proved to be a career-defining role for the star. And the 3rd best sequel to a bad movie is The Suicide Squad. The legacy of the DCEU, since its initial conclusion, is largely characterized by corporate mismanagement and a lack of clear direction and vision. No film exemplifies these issues more than the original Suicide Squad, which was infamously overhauled in post-production to emulate the success of Guardians of the Galaxy. While audiences may never get to see David Ayer's intended version of Suicide Squad, the final film feels soulless, cobbled together based on test screenings and corporate decision-making rather than genuine artistic passion. Despite its shortcomings, the film still performed well at the box office, albeit without a traditional sequel. Instead, The Suicide Squad, a quasi-reboot spiritual sequel, saw significant improvement under the direction of James Gunn, known for his work on the Guardians of the Galaxy films. Gunn's unique directorial vision and genuine love for comic books are evident throughout the film, resulting in a delightful blend of action, inventive creativity, and heartfelt moments. While it may not have been a box office hit, The Suicide Squad is widely regarded as the high point of the DCEU, a considerable improvement over a film that was once considered one of the franchise's lowest points. And the 2nd best sequel to a bad movie in our list is Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. As time has passed, many have forgotten the widespread disappointment and criticism the Star Wars prequel trilogy initially faced, with some viewing them as a betrayal of the beloved franchise. Attack of the Clones often stands out as the weakest entry in this trilogy, with lackluster performances, a dull storyline, and unconvincing special effects that make it one of the least popular Star Wars films. While the film does have some redeeming qualities, it falls short of the expectations associated with the Star Wars brand. Contrary to expectations, Revenge of the Sith managed to end the prequel trilogy on a high note, successfully upholding the legacy and significance of the entire series. While there's now a more positive and somewhat revised view of the prequel trilogy, much of the newfound appreciation is directed towards Revenge of the Sith rather than its predecessors. The film boasts impressive and exhilarating action sequences, provides satisfying resolutions to storylines developed throughout the trilogy, and features some of the most memorable moments in Star Wars history. And the last best sequel to a bad movie in our list is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. The first installment of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was widely panned by critics and considered by many as one of the worst movies ever made. The film shamelessly exploited the newly public domain Winnie the Pooh character to create a poorly executed horror flick. Instead of embracing the potential for a darkly comedic take on murderous childhood icons, the movie featured dull lighting and a grim tone that made it a tedious watch. Despite the harsh criticism and the easy choice to throw in the towel, director Rhys Frake Waterfield took the feedback to heart and made significant improvements for the sequel. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 managed to correct the missteps of its predecessor. While not flawless, the sequel adopted a more playful and self-aware approach to its horror elements, finally tapping into the absurdity of its premise and making the violence and chaos enjoyable to watch. So, among these 5 movies, which one you consider as the best sequel to a bad movie? Tell us in the comments section, and for more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe this channel.